Okay, here I am again, finishing chapter 1 because my husband came out. He needed the room. So, alright. So, now we're talking about Tuscany and just the end of the trip. So, when my Tuscan dream jolted into a full scale nightmare in the hallway in Rome, I was confronted with another reality. I really hadn't found heaven on earth in Italy. No matter how wonderful our surroundings, no matter how perfect it all seems, we will never know and experience the fullness of heaven on earth until Jesus himself makes all things new. All that we see and taste and touch, though being redeemed, is still flawed, deeply and desperately. I kind of like that because it's true, there's so many beautiful things, and even in our lives we have blessings, but we also have, troubles and sadness that comes because this life isn't perfect, and it's only until Christ comes and, we're all judged and receive the glory that we have worked to get, in a sense, with our devotion and how we lived our lives, will we, be able to truly feel the happiness and fullness that we want to have. The heartbreak and horror of what we experience in hospital waiting rooms and in our driveways and through our evening news and in Tuscany under a stairwell is part of this sacred reminder. Things are not as they should be, but they will be. Jesus is making all things new. Heaven is at hand and heaven is still coming. I wanted to linger in the romance, believing perfection was within my reach. But seeing the lifeless ultrasound screen was a stark reminder that we still live in the tension between the now and the not yet. We still live in the now and the not yet. We still live in the now and the not yet. I really like that. It's like my counselor was telling me in therapy, like, I'm so happy that you can recognize that you have blessings. But it's okay to feel the way you feel, even if it's feeling, desperate or tired or overwhelmed, because that is life. Like, we're complex people. We feel more than one thing. And just because there's good things happening doesn't mean that everything's okay. Jesus has come, but he is still coming. Restoration has drawn near, but it's still approaching. Heaven is at hand, but it's still descending. Every tear will be wiped away, but for now we still have reason to cry. My Sunday in Gemelli Hospital left me suspended, neither pregnant nor unpregnant, with a day of limbo before my flight home. I rejected the offer of a D&C, surgical removal of the baby, and decided instead to try my luck at getting back to Ryan and finishing the miscarriage naturally. Although I had chosen a D&C after my first miscarriage, I wasn't keen on surgery in a foreign country where my lack of language left more guesswork than I was comfortable with. Side note, a D&C, gosh, I can't even remember what it, dilate in Courage or Courage. A D&C is a procedure where basically they fully, in a sense, they make you go into labor in a way. Like they give you medicine to fully dilate your cervix to the 10 centimeters, and then they go in there and then they scrape out scrape your uterus lining out to make sure that all the parts of the baby, or as she nicely put it, products of conception, because it's considered that all the products of conception have been removed. And I think it's kind of nice that they, like, both times that she had that she was offered that. I think the reason that perhaps they didn't offer that to me is because it seemed like my body was already taking care of it. I didn't have a situation where I was carrying an undead, no, the zombies, no, an, a deceased fetus, because I had literally had an ultrasound earlier that week, so I knew that the baby was alive, and they knew that, and yeah. So that's probably why they didn't offer me a DNC. So it'll be interesting to see, like, if this ultrasound will show that I need to get something done to, like, or if just my body is doing weird things. So we'll see. So I spent Monday trying my best to blend in with the throngs of tourists in Rome. The best thing I could do for myself, given the circumstances, was to try to make the most of my last day in Italy. I couldn't exactly pretend as if nothing was wrong, but I couldn't pretend nothing was right either. It felt ridiculous and desperate, simultaneously fraudulent and authentic. I totally feel that. I had my miscarriage on Saturday, and then I went to church on Sunday because I was like, I just need to get out of the house. I need to do something. And it was kind of weird because, no, not everyone knew, like, what had happened. And so it was kind of crazy. People were like, oh, how are you doing? And, like, honestly, since then, I've just been like, oh, I'm okay, I'm alright, because I still feel like I'm just trudging through, like, trying to do the bare minimum to survive. And I guess goes along with PTSD. That's just where I am. They say that your sorrow and grief and everything peaks at 6 months, which will be my birthday. But we'll see what happens. Rome is truly enchanting. She made space for my pain in the midst of exquisite beauty. I marveled at the wonders of St. Peter's Basilica and the Sistine Chapel, surrounded by man-made creation, clearly inspired by the Creator, while carrying death in my belly. I cried before Michelangelo's sculpture of the Virgin Mother weeping and cradling her lifeless son. I offered tears as prayers when the words wouldn't come. Amen to that. Sometimes you just can't put things into words, but your tears in your heart are the greatest prayer that you can give to God. The significance and the irony of holding life and death and the hope of resurrection within me while in the eternal city wasn't lost on me. The next morning, I packed up the jumbled mess of my Italy experience and boarded a plane back to America. I was a hurricane of emotions in search of a shore that would tame and downgrade the storm and untangle the currents, pulling me in opposing directions. How could one experience contain such soaring heights and crushing lows? It was all so confusing. I needed the concrete reassurance my husband's arms could give me. It's really true. It's like super conflicting with the miscarriage. And like she said, she was neither pregnant nor unpregnant. I can kind of look at the little journal that I made for Little Peanut, and I think that was the hardest thing to recognize, as she shared earlier, that like a few days before she started feeling more normal, and like her stomach, like, unless you've been pregnant, you can't really explain this, but like, you got your squishy belly, but when your belly's growing when you're pregnant, it's more like a firm, it's weird, but noticing and being like, something just doesn't feel right, And then, like, looking at my papers, like, my blood tests showed that I was pregnant. But my ultrasound and everything showed that I had no products of conception. So, yeah. It's a really weird limbo. And you just feel so empty. I've never felt that low in my life. Or that high. Almost exactly 24 hours after landing in Oregon, I labored and birthed our lifeless child. The process sideswept me, each contraction inviting the rush of pain and injustice and agony all over again. I had no idea this concoction of physical and emotional pain was possible. Somewhere I had picked up the notion that a natural miscarriage would feel more natural. I was wrong. This whole thing was wrong. A mother shouldn't have to say goodbye to her child. It feels unnatural because it is. I rocked through each contraction, wailing in pain and wishing someone could put me out of my anguish and wake me up when it was all over. Laboring was a misery unparalleled, unaccompanied by the endorphins, adrenaline, and promise of holding a child on the other side of the pain. I felt each wave of cramping like another slap in the face, layers of pain compounding. Yeah, it is the most painful thing I have ever experienced. And like she said, they say miscarrying is worse than actually delivering your child because, as stated, your body lets out other hormones when you finally, deliver your baby. You get to hold your baby. But instead, during a miscarriage, you just get to flush all your dreams down the toilet, literally. Unless, obviously, you deliver. Which, I'm speaking from my own experience. There's different, that's like the first trimester. It might be different when it's like the second trimester, and definitely different when it's the third trimester because your baby's actually formed. You know what gender your baby is. Your baby looks more human, and you can possibly hold your baby for a little bit and take pictures. Where I literally just had to say goodbye to the golf ball, the size of a golf ball, that I flushed down the toilet. It wasn't fair. And yet it happened. Thoughts of laboring a dead baby spun in my mind, and I wish I could take those hours back in Rome and readmit myself to the hospital for the D&C like the doctor had recommended. I realize every woman handles this sort of thing differently, and for some, miscarrying naturally resembles a heavy period. But not for me. This was full-blown labor, with no midwife there to cheer me on. I loathed every second of it and longed for the familiarity of waking up from the anesthesia with someone whispering, "Don't worry, it's all over now." At least when they scraped our first miscarried child from my womb, I could blame the doctors for taking her. This time I couldn't shift that awful burden to anyone else. I was the one who delivered this child to his grave. My doctor later explained to me that not every miscarriage ends with such physical pain, but that experiencing harsh contractions is not uncommon either. She apologized for not having had the opportunity to give me adequate pain relief before the onset of labor, and for not more thoroughly briefing me over the phone when I called, desperate, from Italy. Our distance understandably brought limitations. Even though I had experienced 21 hours of painful back labor with no medication during our son Judah's birth, I was not prepared for the intensity of this pain. The physical pain was awful. The emotional pain was worse. Losing one child felt like a tragedy that happened to me. Losing a second felt like something happened through me and because of me. In the aftermath of the second miscarriage, I was a furnace of anger, yet over and over again, God entered my flames, offering peace for my chaos, hope for my grief. We named our baby Oliver David. Oliver means peace, which we sensed God extending to us in the trauma that felt like war on our souls. David means beloved. These names represented God's heart and promise for us, and I believe they are a twofold promise for you too. Jesus offers peace when everything else feels upside down, inside out, and on fire, and you are beloved, no matter how broken you feel. If you're watching this because you had a miscarriage, did you name your baby? Did you know what gender your baby was? Did you have names picked out? We had a boy name picked out, but we didn't know if it was a boy or girl. I thought it was a girl. John thought it was, at first he thought it was a girl, but then he started feeling it was a boy. I think that's the hardest part, not knowing what my baby looked like and all that stuff. Like, it's rough. And it makes me scared that I'll have another miscarriage, and it's possible. It's a very common thing that is unfair and not talked about, and it needs to be. So please share with me your thoughts and your feelings. I do care. And I think it's really important that we come together as women and talk about these experiences, because being a woman is tough. And this is one of the things that we see, the injustices. Like I've shared before, they literally told me, oh, it happens, like 1 in 3 pregnancies or something like that. Something really common. And then they went on to tell me that I was just feeling cramps. But I was like, no. These cramps, I equated it to being what I thought was labor. Because I've read that labor, your cramps intensify and they come and go. And that's literally what my body was doing. That I would reach this peak of pain that, like, I literally wanted to just pass out. I thought I was going to. I was sweating. I was dizzy. And they just said, oh, you're just having cramps. And it's one of those things that's still really upsetting to me, that I was just shrugged off in my pain. Like, I was in so much pain, I couldn't talk. I couldn't sign myself out. John had to sign everything for me because I was in so much pain. He had to advocate for me because I was in so much pain. And yeah. And like again, like I said, having my periods back has been like an emotional roller coaster, because I have been getting I get really bad cramps, and then it reminds me of like the cramps I had when, implantation, and then I'm like, oh, if this gets any worse, then it's gonna be like the cramps when I lost our child. So many emotions. And I'm sorry. I'm saying I'm sorry maybe more for myself. That I'm not able to show all the emotions that I want to. I get almost stoic, a flat effect that I can't. When I'm by myself, I can. But I am happy that I've been able to cry a little bit, because my heart has just been heavy, especially as I've seen this formula shortage. I'm like, these poor babies, like, they're our future, and they need food. It, like, hurts my heart. But I will see you in the next chapter. I'm going to start a new video for that, so I'll see you guys in a little bit. Ciao.